Hello. Good morning. Hello. Kate, the effulgent one. Ellie, good morning. It is a beautiful day to be cute and gay. It's cold here today. Yeah, it's going to be really, really cold. We're also going to have some snow here in North Carolina. So, ooh, y'all, we have a lot to talk about today. We have a lot to break down. Also, I just want to note that I kind of feel like I'm running a little bit behind. I wasn't feeling super great yesterday towards the end of the day. And I'm trying to catch up on posting my live streams and content. So, anyway, just give me some grace there. I appreciate every single one of you. Good morning. Got my mod pants on. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm assuming that we're going to need those. because, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Happy birthday, Taylorina. Hold on, let me pin your comment. We have a birthday in the chat. Happy birthday to you. Sorry, I'm not going to try to be White Mariah. Anyway, good morning. Happy birthday, Taylorina. I see a whole bunch of friends here in the chat. Kate, Chelsea. Appreciate you all. The effulgent one, Ellie. Good morning. Akicha, hello. Let's see. It sounded like Whitney. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get there, Casey. We're going to get there in a second. So for those of you that are just scrolling in the chat, if you all know me, I do live news where I break down a lot of the current happenings. I also am going to be providing an overview of some of the other actions the Trump administration has taken. Basically, they're gutting a huge part of the federal workforce, and we're going to be breaking down all of that. Also, many people are asking, Scott, where do you go for news and information? Where do you go to hear these stories, hear these kinds of things? And I wanted to provide you some action steps on people that I think do really, really great work in the independent progressive media space. And these are people that don't take exorbitant amounts of corporate money from any sort of individual group. They don't take money from a foreign government to spew their propaganda. They are raw investigative journalists. They do provide some of their opinion, but they also do great work trying to inform people. So I will be providing some of those folks who I tend to go and gravitate towards, and who kind of also inspire me to do some of my own work. So we're going to be getting into that. But I want to start off with this here. Obviously, someone was super impatient and wanted to see this. So this is a post on Facebook, and I'm going to read it out here. Donald J. Trump. Hello, sir. So this person is tagging Trump in here. I am one of the probationary employees terminated by DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, at 9 p.m. last night, February 14th. So this was a few days ago. I voted for you, sir, 3 times, and I still support you. I was encouraged by the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, to see they were getting rid of the wasteful government spending. I support that too. My termination letter said I was being let go for performance reasons. I know that's not true. I am an excellent employee. I've been with the federal government for almost 16 years. 16 years in June. I had started my career with the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, transferred into the Department of Homeland Security, and recently came back to USDA because it's such a great agency to work for. Surely that must count for something in your eyes. I'm loyal, and I firmly believe that the work I do as a USDA APHIS-PPQ employee, I don't know what all that stands for, is vital and important. My boss, his boss, the managers in neighboring states all agree I'm doing an excellent job and that I'm a great asset to the team. I'm the only, I think they're the only person in the state of Kentucky, and my work here is valued and honorable. Each time I voted for you, it was because I knew you'd make things and knew you'd fix the wrongs. I'm counting on you now to make this right too. I'm pleading with you to reinstate my employment and give me my job back. Please, Mr. President, thank you. So we're going to be seeing, of course, more and more stories come out like this. And this is super anecdotal. And for people who are like, oh, well, what's this person's name? That doesn't matter. I'm not here to give out personal information. This kind of stuff continues to pop up over and over and over and over and over. And it will continue to. Now, of course, it's very, very easy to be like, oh yeah, FAFO, you got what you voted for. Aren't you happy that you are getting the policy you voted for? Yes. Yes, they of course, like, that's a very raw human reaction to have. And to a scope, it makes sense to a scope. In a sense, they're kind of getting what they sow. That's what I wanted to say. They're reaping what they sow. And I like, these people are so truly brainwashed, they think help is coming. I want to point out that there are some people who truly, as you're saying there, that one girl, this person's like, I voted for you 3 times and I still support you. It's like, you do realize that the Trump administration, through their Department of Government Efficiency, which I shouldn't even say the Trump administration, meaning the Musk administration, since it's all headed by Elon Musk, it all really is just come down to, they're just cutting everything in government, thinking it's going to actually make things better. And like, you can trim the fat off of the meat, but they're literally just downsizing the portion so much that we're not going to feel fed. Like, the government is not going to work when you terminate so many people. And there are so many stories that are going to be popping up so similar to this. I'm absolutely devastated. Last night, myself and many others at the Veterans Crisis Line were terminated without warning via an email sent after hours due to actions by the Trump administration. Nobody, including leadership, had any idea that this was coming. This decision not only affects me and my family, but will also negatively impact veterans who rely on this service. I'm a veteran and current military member. I was hired as a military spouse. I have outstanding performance appraisals. I've been a federal employee for almost 9 years. I was just 12 days away from completing my probationary period. I recently switched agencies from the Department of Veterans Affairs to which resets your first year as probationary. I'm supposed to start my paid maternity leave in less than 10 weeks. I am crushed by what is happening under this administration. I'm begging you all to open your eyes of what's really happening in this country and stop being blinded by ignorance. This is wrong on so many levels. So I want to read out a great piece from Rolling Stone. And this really just puts some things in perspective. Please make sure to send some likes. I love all of you. So this is a piece in Rolling Stone that was brought to my attention by one of my favorite investigative journalists that I tend to follow, Kyle Kulinski, who does pretty great work. I disagree with some things that he does or ways that he goes about it naturally, but like, I really think that Kyle Kulinski does a great job. And he brought me to the attention of this piece, and I wanted to read it out. So this is a piece from Rolling Stone. Trump and Musk Valentine's Day massacre of military veterans. In a late-night purge, 7 federal agencies carried out mass layoffs, 1,000 at the Veterans Administration alone, the nation's largest employer of military veterans. Picture this. You risk everything for your country. Leave your friends and family behind. Go overseas. Watch your friends die or have their lives changed forever. You come home. Adjusting isn't easy. And by the way, just as a quick pause, if you just want to listen to this, no need to like constantly comment or be anything like that. This is, just listen for a second. I'm just going to read all of this through. So I appreciate every single one of you. So again, picture this. You risk everything for your country. Leave your friends and family behind. Go overseas. Watch your friends die or have their lives changed forever. Oh, thank you for the heart me and the rose. I appreciate it. Y'all are awesome. You come home. Adjusting isn't easy. The nightmares keep you up. That old military injury never really heals. You work full time, you go to school, scrape by just to make it. Then, one day, you get the email. Congratulations, we are offering you a tentative job at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, or the Department of Defense, or the USAID, or another agency. Finally, after years of sacrifice, you have a fresh start. You buy a home, you get married, you have kids, maybe even travel. 10 years go by, you've built a life. You have a steady career, glowing performance evaluations, and now you have a family and a mortgage. You did it. Your service paid off. You're finally living the American dream. Then a promotion opportunity comes along. Just the raise you need to book that dream vacation with your family. The only catch? A short probationary period. No big deal. You've had a stellar record in federal service and the military. You take the job. Then Elon Musk, an unelected, unelected billionaire with no ties to the military fires you. Everything you've built, gone. Gone in an instant. At the whim of someone who has nothing to do with your service, your sacrifice, or your career. Gone in an instant. On the eve of this Valentine's Day, that is the brutal blow of Trump and Musk have dealt to the Americans' veterans. The administration this week began aggressively laying off thousands of government employees across multiple agencies, hitting especially veterans hard. The Department of Veterans Affairs confirmed late Thursday night that it had let go more than 1,000 probationary employees this week. The sweeping downsizing of Musk's cost-cutting initiative, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, and pause, efficiency for who, by whose definition, and for whose gain, which has already gained access to sensitive personnel and financial data in at least 16 agencies. Some agencies, like USAID, have been gutted completely. In all, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, is targeting over 200,000 federal employees for dismissal. The Trump administration has launched a full-scale attack on veterans. Thank you, the Effulgent One, love you. Their families, and their federal workers who support them. By the way, a third of all employees, federal employees, are military veterans. And I want to pause here. If you are looking for a job as a veteran coming out of service, it's very, very popular to go and work for the federal government or one of these agencies. It's a great way to adjust from service life to then working kind of within the realm of public service without being directly on the front lines in the military. I have personal friends who actually have served themselves, and as a way of adjusting from their service, they are employed within the federal government. So for Elon Musk and his, I guess, puppet president, Trump, to be cutting all of these people's jobs, it's understandable if you're trying to cut the fat, but also these are people who risked their lives and were in service, and now as a way of adjusting took these positions, and now they're all being let go. All of these people cannot be these huge corrupt group cabal of people that are super bad and leading to the destruction of America, right? So it's so funny how I want to point out that the villain that MAGA has been selling to their people is, these federal employees. These federal employees are the bad folks. The bad folks. Meanwhile, these are folks who served their country, and again, a third of all federal employees were veterans. So these are people who served their country, and as a way of adjusting to public life after serving, which I can't even imagine what it's like serving in the military, now are just constantly being fired and demonized for just trying to pull themselves up. It looks like we have some people in denial and that are rage typing in here. So since they're going to continue being childish, just ignore them. Also, I want to say to all the quiet listeners who enjoy this morning live broadcast, everyone just type the word yes. Just type the word yes. Show them how many people in here are just so tired of their crap. Okay? to all of the rage typers, which I've not even seen your comments, I just see the like, rah, rah, rah. You see how many people in here are so tired of your shit? You see how many people in here are just over? They're just over the like whiny, rage typing, provocative drama seeking, in denial people. So just respectfully move on. If you're experiencing too much cognitive dissonance, mental adversity because you're hearing information that goes against what you want to believe, then do yourself a favor and scroll on and maintain your own ignorance. Otherwise, stick around and become a part of the resistance and actually the patriotic group of Americans that are fighting back against a corrupt coup taking over our government. Get it? Got it? Good. Cool. Awesome. So, the sweeping downsizing of Musk's cost-cutting initiative, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, again, efficiency for who, by whose definition, and for whose gain, just those things, which has already gained access to sensitive personnel and financial data in at least 16 agencies. Some agencies like USAID have been gutted completely. In all, DOGE is targeting over 200,000 federal employees for dismissal. Trump's administration has launched a full-scale attack on veterans, their families, and federal workers who support them. A third of all federal employees are military veterans. And make no mistake, the latest round of layoffs at the Department of Veterans Affairs is just the beginning. Just the beginning. Trump's executive order, which is called Implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency Workforce Optimization Initiative, imposes one of the most damaging federal workforce policies in history. For every 4 employees who leave, only 1 can be replaced. Let me say it again. For every 4 employees who leave, only 1 can be replaced. For an already understaffed Veterans Affairs, this is a disaster. Veterans' medical care, disability claims, support services depend on an adequate workforce. Slashing hiring ensures growing backlogs, worsening care, increased suffering for those who only rely on VA services, Veterans Affairs services. With an aging veteran population and an expanded VA mission under previous administrations, now is the time to invest in the VA, not gut it. I also just want to point out that this kind of goes into the whole theme of what I've talked about in previous live streams about benefit buy down. Do you all remember when I was talking about benefit buy down? I specifically talked about it within the greed and avarice of the healthcare insurance industry. So, do you all remember all that with benefit buy down? If you do, then put your favorite emoji in the chat. It was a previous live stream where I talked about it. Benefit buy down is simply when a corporation will raise the prices of goods, but make it less of a good or less of a service. So it's also similar to shrinkflation, where you are buying the same product, but at a higher price, and there's less of that product to buy. So when you buy a bag of chips, it's going to be more expensive, but there's going to be less chips in the bag. The same is going for healthcare. You pay more and more for your healthcare and get less and less coverage. With this, because of this Department of Government Efficiency thing, they are expecting more and more from every single employee because they're cutting all of their other fellow workforce people, and they're doing it in order to save money. This is what private equity does. Are you all familiar with private equity? Private equity, what they do is they're honestly, private equity is to blame for why America sucks in some ways. Private equity goes in and they make you pay more and more for less and less of the service, less and less coverage, less and less of the product, and they give it to you at a less quality. So what this Department of Government Efficiency is doing, whatever your workplace is, let's just say, like, of course, there's going to be that one person that really doesn't do much. That's fair. But just imagine for every 4 employees who leaves, only 1 can be replaced. You know, your agency, whatever workplace you are at, just imagine for every 4 people who are fired, only 1 person can be hired. And your boss is still expecting you to increase sales, increase services, finish that deadline, complete all of those reports. You can't run a government by gutting your workforce, because what that does is it imposes a lot of excessive burden on those existing people, and they're not going to be able to meet those goals. So just think about and have the courage of empathy to put yourself in that person's shoes. Let's say that I worked for an agency that was funding grants for domestic violence and sexual assault shelters. I use that example because I worked as an intern for an agency that did all of the grants management and grant writing for all of those shelters. If you were to get rid of if you were to get rid of some of those people, it obviously puts a lot more strain on the existing employees. Now, I'm not saying that there's no fraud, waste, and abuse in any sort of government. But what also happens is if you gut it to this extent, you are burdening the existing people. And to all of the rage typers that are like, oh, it's possible, you know that it's not. So don't even. Your stubbornness is getting in the way of seeing the forest for the trees. Like, you are so beholden to trying to lick Donald Trump's feet that you are willing to make yourself look like an idiot and a fool on live in order to do that. Here's your invitation. You don't have to constantly pull muscles with the amount of stretching you have to do to justify this guy's actions. You could think for yourself and actually look at this and say, you know what? Actually, he has a point. So, anyway. All of that being said, let's continue onward here. Trump's executive order doesn't just stop at limiting new hires. It also forces immediate reductions in force, cutting positions that aren't explicitly mandated by law. This means that administrative staff, veterans outreach programs, transition assistance services will be among the first to go. These programs provide critical support for transitioning service members, veterans seeking jobs, and military families overseas. Many depend on these programs for childcare, job placement, and legal guidance, and services that help their transition from military to civilian life possible. Now veterans and their families are being left to fend for themselves. Just imagine, also put it in perspective, just imagine if this was the Biden administration. Just imagine if this was a Democrat doing this. How would conservatives react? Would they be like, yeah, we're cutting the unfortunate fat. We're cutting the fraud, waste, and abuse. No. They would be screaming out their keister. Just imagine if Kamala Harris said, in order for us to save money with the government, we're going to completely defund the VA. We're going to cut all these people. We're going to fire all these people. First off, if that were to have happened, I'd be like, are we sure about that? You're saying that it's fraud, waste, and abuse. Is someone else's livelihood of the work that they do fraud, waste, and abuse? Or could you maybe be more efficient and crafty and have a better solution of covering up and having accountability for the existing people that can always improve upon their work? So, it is so interesting. Just put the shoe on the other foot. They'd be screaming. They would be literally claiming that Democrats are communists, Marxists, socialists for wanting to terminate people a part of the VA. But as soon as they do it, oh, it's for being efficient. Do you see how it's like this heads I win, tails you lose logic? It's like trying to play Monopoly with a 4-year-old. Every single time you go around, it's like the 4-year-old changes the rules so that when you land on their properties, you have to pay double. But then when they land on yours, they only have to pay half. Do you see how opportunistic it is? And this is where I tell you, MAGA and the right wing, they don't have an ideology. They don't have any sort of stable set of beliefs. It's only opportunism. It's only what is convenient. It's only what is going to help them temporarily get ahead. You can't play a game. You can't have a country if someone is constantly seeking to change the rules when it benefits them. You can't do that. You can't negotiate with a group in good faith if they're the ones that change the terms of the agreement when it benefits them. Do you all understand what I mean? And this is why I don't take them seriously at all, because you can't take them seriously. Because they are not serious to begin with. I mean, they do serious damage, but they are not seriously thinking about trying to collaborate with you. If you understand what I mean, then just type yes. And if you're enjoying the live stream, please send some likes. I work super, super hard to break all of this down into easy to understand little bits. And I hope that my summary, my breaking those kinds of things down are really helpful, because I know so many people in this moment who are like, yeah, I don't know the words in order to express how I'm feeling in this moment. I hope that my morning live can help give you some of the inspiration, as well as put words to some of y'all's thoughts. Because I aim to give you the tools to battle this moment effectively. That's like what I do. So, to make matters worse, the hiring process at the Veterans Affairs is now controlled by Musk's DOGE team leads, who have final approval over new employees. Instead of a merit-based system, hiring decisions are now subject to unnecessary delays and potential interference. By the way, thank you for the hot chili peppers. I do have a live goal, and I work super, super hard. Ooh, we're at 151 of it. That's awesome. I appreciate all of you. If you think that I get spicy, I'm like subdued spicy today. Then send chili peppers, because I think it's just fun. Now, what's so interesting is Musk's DOGE has these team leads who have no experience. Some of these so-called team leads do not appear to have any experience in government at all, and instead are just young political operatives with extreme and racist views. So all of a sudden you have all these people that are hired by the Trump administration's, or I guess the Musk administration via Trump for their DOGE, that are just like these super, super young people who have no experience in government whatsoever, and these higher ranking roles that were basically hired because they're like super far right authoritarian, like wannabe frat bros. And they're overseeing the terminations of all of these people. Like, I have no words for it. Like, it's just crazy. It's just crazy to me. So they have these like these young people basically going and just, Bobby Raid. Bobby Raid, what's up, Bobby? What's up, friends? How's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? How's Bobby? Hope Bobby's doing well. Nurse protection, words. I can't English today. Nurse practitioner here. It's insane. Yeah, it really is. So, when putting all of this in perspective, you have the Veterans Affairs completely being decimated. They are terminating people left and right. And it's leading to more and more stories like this. More and more stories like this. Or even this person. I'm absolutely devastated. Last night, myself and many others were terminated at the Veterans Crisis Line. They were terminated without warning via an email sent after hours due to the actions of the Trump administration. Nobody, including leadership, had any idea that this was coming. Just imagine if this was a Kamala Harris administration, and for the purpose of efficiency, they went in and they terminated people who worked at the Veterans Crisis Line. Let me tell you what exactly would happen. Fox News would be talking about this exact specific thing for a month and 15 days. I would put everything that I have in my minuscule small bank account and say that Fox News would be they'd make this into big press events. They would have town halls. They would be constantly collaborating with every single fringe right-wing lying news source in order to make this the biggest scandal ever. They would be whining about it to the ends of the earth. Now go back to present day. This is done under a Republican administration. Oh, no, it's trimming the fat. It's being efficient. Do we really think that terminating thousands of employees is going to make government efficient? If your workplace were to terminate thousands of people, if your company were to terminate thousands of people, is that alone going to be the answer to solving things? I want to explain. I worked at a specific company that was big. They had a lot of different locations across the United States. I no longer work for them. If they were to just terminate a lot of people, you know what that does? That puts a lot more responsibility on the existing workforce. And of course, we know that bosses have high expectations, high goals for people. Oh, we want to do more sales. Oh, we want to have more reports done. We want to sell more product. We want to be able to serve this many more patients. And of course, you know that one person that doesn't really do much. They kind of are just like a seat warmer, right? But thousands of people are not those seat warmers. You might have a few in every single agency, sure. But also terminating thousands of people that do good work. Like, I would not be surprised if the trains just stopped showing up on time. Like, government is going to come to a halt because people are not doing the things in order to make it run. Terminating people and their jobs, veterans are going to suffer because you now have a super defunded veterans crisis line. Veterans are not going to have the services of knowing what to do after coming back from being deployed. You're not going to have the same housing, the childcare, the hoops that you go through in order to attain those benefits from the VA. Poof, gone. And for all the people who somehow think that this is a good thing, somehow think that, oh, this is a really, really good action, I'm sorry that you don't have any courage of empathy to understand or listen to other people's stories. You're only going to wake up when it slaps you in the face, and then you're going to be like, Scott Johnson was right all along. And look, I'm not going to be like, yeah, there you go. You messed around with the bull and you get the horns. I'm going to say, great. I'm so glad that you finally woke up after so much of us trying to tell you that our boat is sinking. You need to stop plunging holes in it. Because here's the thing, as easy and tempting as it is for me personally to be like, FAFO, which it's like, yeah, I'm more about like tough love, take accountability, recognize that you contributed to this, and move forward. And I'm saying that because for those of you, and this is a little anecdotal for me, I actually was raised super conservative Christian Southern. I was raised in a super Christian conservative. I can't English, hold on. I was MAGA. I was raised that way. I had a subscription to Sean Hannity's podcast when I was in high school. I was raised in that kind of echo chamber. I was told what to believe, not given the tools of how to think critically. That's why I'm so passionate about what I do. So I was one of these people that was these rage typers. I never actually followed through because I didn't do it on TikTok lives or anything like that. I really didn't even do it like on social media, but I was one of these people that reacted this kind of way. It wasn't until someone confronted me about my lack of thinking for myself that I was like, oh, crap, you're right. And I took up my own agency to think critically. I was a part of that. I'm not saying that, I wasn't one of these people that only woke up because it affected me. I was one of these people that was given the tools. Oh my gosh, you have to also look at how things affect other people. So I was able to wake up once I realized that it affected other people, even if it didn't affect me. But that's because I was given that critical thinking and those tools by someone else. So why I'm so passionate about what I do, I want to avoid people having the struggles that I went through. And that's why I do what I do. If you're all, I said this yesterday, and I know I'm kind of all over the place right now. I said this yesterday. If you're looking for a metaphor for this current political moment, I'm saying that it is a lot like the Titanic. It's a lot like the Titanic. Were you all here yesterday when I talked about this metaphor? I'm going to be talking about it endlessly over and over. If you all were here yesterday when I was talking about this metaphor of the Titanic, then just comment yes, if you were. Right now, our country is a lot like the Titanic. And, of course, on the Titanic, you had the crew. The crew is like the government. You have the different tiers of people. You have the rich, wealthy people. You have the middle class, and you have the working class. On the boat in the Titanic, of course, you had the crew, but then when you looked at the Titanic, the classes were, depending on your status and wealth, were on different parts of the ship. So the working class were predominantly in the boonies, in the lowest part of the ship, near where the engine room was, where all that stuff was. The rich people were on the deck, at the top. Our country is a lot like the Titanic. You had a group of people on the Titanic storm the helm, storm the bridge, where there was the captain, the government, the crew was running the boat. They stormed the bridge to the point where the steering wheel jolted and then hit the iceberg. And now the Titanic stopped and we are slowly sinking. We are slowly sinking. Now, as soon as people are like, oh, that the ship is sinking, there's some people that are in denial. Oh, the ship isn't sinking. The ship's not sinking. That's lies. That's misinformation. It can't be sinking. That's not possible. There are some people that are like, it is sinking. What are we going to do? There are some people that are just completely operating out of ignorance. Meanwhile, hardworking people trying to keep the engines going in the engine room are now starting to see water seeping in. It's starting to get into the engine room, stopping them from actually being able to keep the lights on the ship, burning the coal in order to keep the lights on. Several of the crew are really, really worried about what this is going to do. And of course, you have the rich people that then go to the crew and say, well, what are we going to do to save ourselves? Meanwhile, a lot of working class people are just scraping to get by, trying to figure out how to stop the situation. And meanwhile, the ship continues to sink. Now, it affects different people differently. Of course, the working class, middle class are going to be affected first because they're at the lowest parts of the ship. The water, of course, goes down. So, we are a lot like the Titanic. Our country is slowly sinking. And I don't mean to be like, oh my God, Scott's being so dramatic. No, it's just, we're in the middle. We've hit the iceberg. And the storm, the iceberg was truly, again, Donald Trump being elected. And we are slowly starting to sink. Now, some of these people who stormed the helm are like, crap. Oh my God. These kinds of people are slowly waking up. All of those people that are saying FAFO, these Trump voters that are like, yeah, I wasn't aware of anything until it affected me. Right. but now we're all sinking. Some are being hurt more than others, particularly folks of different marginalized groups, trans people, people of color, especially people with disabilities right now. So wait, hold on. Someone said, I have this kid on mute right now. Doesn't it show more about you, the fact that you... No, hold on. Doesn't it show more about you, the fact that you think that that's an own? That you're like, yeah, I'm going to prove it to this kid. I'm going to have his live stream on my phone or whatever and just turn down the volume. Dude, what? Is that a way to like... Anyway, it's just... These people are weird. I mean, you can just say that you have a crush on me. You can just say that you have a crush on me. That's fine. Yeah, like, it's okay. I know I'm cute. So the reason I share that metaphor is because it's given me a lot of peace of mind. At the end of the day, it's very easy for us to be like, yeah, FAFO. Like, now you are being impacted because you're starting to realize the water's rushing into your cabin. Meanwhile, it's also rushing into our cabins. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't express that emotion, because their actions lead to the displacement of certain groups faster. Women and people with the capacity for pregnancy don't have the rights for their own bodies. It's constantly being taken away. So, for a woman to then be like FAFO makes a lot more sense than for me, who's not had my reproductive rights taken away. So there's an understandable amount of like a level of forgiveness based on how inconvenienced people are. So it's important to throw all of that in context. But in order for us to save the Titanic, to get water out of the ship, to repair our ship, we also have to find ways to hold people accountable, but lock arms at the end of the day. Is this metaphor helpful engaging in this moment? I think it was helpful for a lot of people yesterday. If you're nodding along, or if this metaphor is in some ways giving you a little bit of clarity about how to tackle this moment, just put your favorite emoji in the chat. Just put your favorite emoji in the chat if it's helpful in that sense. I'm finding it to be super, super helpful because metaphors always help me. I find it to be super, super helpful that I can kind of figure out how to go about thinking about this political moment. I'm glad to see that it is. If it's not helpful whatsoever, then just ignore me. But I listen to a lot of Owl City, and it's going to sound really random, but I listen to a lot of Owl City. He's one of my favorite artists, Adam Young, and all of his songs are spoken in metaphors. And I find metaphors really help me understand the current present. If I take the existing parameters of a situation and put it into another situation, it gives me a little bit more clarity on how to think about it. So, going back to everything here, I'm glad I see a lot of people commenting emojis, which I think emojis are just fun. They're happiness little makers. So I'm glad that it's helpful. That's my goal. Also, please make sure to send some likes. I love all of you. Y'all are awesome. So I wanted to start out with that. I also want to point out, and this is a small little story I'm going to share before I'm going to do a recap of yesterday. So, Social Security Commissioner reportedly ousted after denying Elon Musk access to sensitive files within the Social Security Administration. Michelle King, the acting commissioner on the Social Security Administration, was ousted after denying Elon Musk access to sensitive files, a person close to the matter told the Washington Post. Now, there are people that are like, yeah, this is really, really serious. There's no way to overstate how much of a serious breach this is. And my understanding is that it's already occurred, said the president of Social Security Works. So, news that the acting Social Security Administration head, left her post this past weekend after facing off with Elon Musk lieutenants over the efforts to access the government's records, set off alarm bells blaring, with advocates warning that the unethical billionaire is moving to seize highly sensitive data. And you're like, well, what kind of data are they talking about? The Social Security Administration has comprehensive medical records of people who have applied for disability benefits. It has our bank information, our earnings records, the names and ages of our children, and much, much more. Older people are disproportionately susceptible to scams. The data at the SSA leaking would make that it would make the number of scams skyrocket. Like, just think about it. Think about if that... Hold on, I need to... The data at SSA would make the number of scams skyrocket. And if there is an intent to punish perceived enemies, someone could erase your earnings record, make it impossible to collect the Social Security and Medicare benefits that you have earned. I like how someone said, and I'm sorry, the effulgent one, I just needed to clear it so I could read the background. If you can pin that again, that'd be great. I love you. I love how someone just said yawn. So, for everyone that's on Social Security, like, do you not care that an unelected billionaire now has all of that information? Like, it's really wild. Let me also just let me just point something out here too. You know what's really interesting? What's really, really interesting is that MAGA continues to try and go after a group called the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy. You've all heard of the bureaucracy, right? There's the three branches of government. There's the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. Well, the fourth kind of unofficial branch is called the bureaucracy. They are the ones that are a part of federal agencies. USAID, Veterans Affairs, the USDA. They are the ones that are part of the Social Security Administration. They are your federal workers that do the hard grunt work to make sure that things are going. Think of it like this. If the government is a car, the legislative, the judicial, and the executive branches are a lot like bigger, flashier parts of the car. The executive branch is the person driving the car. The judicial branch is the person sitting in the back informing you about all the laws on how to drive your car. The legislative branch is the person in the front seat that is guiding you on where to drive your car to a certain destination. The bureaucracy is a lot like every single part underneath within the car. Of course, you have the accelerator, the engine, the throttle, every single tiny little spoke and wheel is the bureaucracy. Our car is not going to get to the destination that we need to go if you eliminate all of those important roles within the car. You know, when you open the hood of a car and you're like, all these, if you know cars, you might know where everything is. But if you open a car, any normal person does, and you're like, I have no idea what all of this does. Elon Musk is a lot like someone opening the hood of our car and just completely ransacking it with whatever he wants to take out because he thinks it will be helpful. That is what's happening with our government right now. Now, of course, there's probably going to be parts of a car that are unnecessary, that you don't need to run the car. But it's making an enemy out of the bureaucracy instead of making an enemy out of the people who are frauds, the people who are looting our government, the rich corporations that are hacking into our GPS, that are whispering in the ear of the person driving, that are changing the makeup of the person in the back seat. Do you see, is that metaphor helpful too? If it's passed over people, then no worries. But it's funny how MAGA has been brainwashing people to think that the bureaucracy, the integral parts of the car, are the big, dangerous people in government. When in reality, they're not looking at the corporations that are controlling all of these actors. This is like kindergarten. I don't mean it to be like, like, hello kitties, let's gather around and learn. Like, I just hope that my metaphors help place things in perspective. Because right now, you are having the ransacking of all these agencies to the point where government's about to come to a halt. Things are not going to circle time. Things are not going to run. Things are not going to get done. People are not going to be served. So the reason why this live is called Constitutional Crisis Incoming is because when government comes to a halt because of all of this stuff happening, people aren't served, things don't get done, it's going to be a huge crap show. It's going to be a huge crap show. And we're already seeing part of this. Now, I want to recap part of yesterday. So for those of you who were on my live stream yesterday, by the way, this is my parents' new kitty. While I'm looking for graphics, that's my parents' new kitty. His name is Ralph. Isn't he so cute? Isn't he so cute? I'm cruising the TikTok to hand out gratuitous compliments. Your brows, 10 out of 10, gorgeous. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Ralph is a little goober. He's an absolute menace. He is one of the most active cats I've ever met. So, further diving into this whole subject, we are in the midst of a constitutional crisis. We are about to have way more adversity ahead. Orange cat, that's why? Yeah. Orange cats have a tendency to be extra silly. He is very, very silly and cute. He's a menace because he's orange. No, he's a menace because he's a very, very active cat. So, you all may have seen this, but Donald Trump posted on his Truth Social and on Twitter a quote from Napoleon, which the quote is, "He who saves his country violates no law." Okay, I did this exercise yesterday, but I still want to do it again. Out of all the words in this sentence, which is the most subjective? Which is the most subjective? Subjective meaning not objective. Objective is like fact, solid data, statistic, science kind of thing. Subjective is up for interpretation, up for opinion, up for discretion. You all are getting it right. It's the word saves. He who saves his country violates no law, is what Donald Trump posted. So obviously, Donald Trump thinks that he is saving this country. I mean, part of his, I guess, mantra when running this last time was Save America. Okay. So obviously, he has a version of what he thinks his policies is going to save America. All right. So, using this logic, he who saves his country violates no law, I put in place of Trump, Luigi Mangione. If Luigi Mangione in his manifesto, which I'm not going to lie, I love Luigi Mangione. I don't condone violence, but I find him fascinating as a political figure. Also, he's super cute. But just put in place Luigi Mangione. He obviously thought that unaliving a super, super wealthy, well-connected CEO who has made his fortune off of denying people health insurance, he was under the belief that that would save America. Under his logic, is he then not violating any law by unaliving that person? Well, if he's saving the country... The reason I say that is because he who saves his country violates no law. Well, saving by whose definition? Is the person that tried to take out Donald Trump the first time through a bullet, is he not then, through his eyes, saving the country? Like, when you look at it, saving by whose definition? If I were to break the law and rob a bank, if I said, oh, well, I'm saving the country, am I then not going to be held liable for breaking the law? Like, so if you save the country, then you don't have to worry if you violate the law. He who saves his country violates no law. So that means that as long as you're doing something to save the country, you're not violating the law. Do you see how it's up for interpretation? It's up for subjective opinion. Like, it's so funny. We have so many people in here. They're like, stop it. Why? Am I making your brain hurt by thinking? Am I making you uncomfortable by making you think critically about these words? You know, it's just, yeah. And I don't know the latest update with Luigi Mangione. I just use him as an example. And for those people who are like, but did Donald Trump really say this, or did he just post the graphic? Did he just post the graphic? No, he really said it. He, on his X, he said who saves his country does not violate any law. He posted it right there. Yeah, saving the country is an opinion. Exactly. Exactly. Why is there a photo of Elon on a horse? Well, I believe that's supposed to be Napoleon. Yeah, that's not Elon Musk. But anyway. And I just want to point out that, like, people were immediately clocking him on social media. Oh, I was kidding. Okay. Well, you never know. Everyone's definition of saving a country is different. Anybody uses thinking to break the law in any way that they choose. No, you are not a king. You are not a dictator. This is America. And it's really, really interesting because you had one of these MAGA chest thumpers that tried to twist his words and said, he is saying that he's saving our country without violating a law. No, that's not what he's saying at all. He's not saying that he's not violating a law. He is saying that he who saves his country violates no law. So, with this kind of line of thinking, law is completely thrown out. It's like you can break the law if you are saving the country. That's what this says. Law and order is completely thrown out as long as you are saving the country. I love how this person twists those words to maintain. Yeah, release Luigi then. Right. So, I point all of this out because we have a president that is justifying doing anything that he thinks is saving the country. Let's put the shoe on the other foot. Let's say that Kamala Harris put this out there. That she, because, woman, she who saves her country violates no law. You know what right-wingers would do? They would freak out. They would massively be like throwing endless temper tantrums. They'd be calling out this huge hypocrisy. And look, they wouldn't be wrong. They wouldn't be wrong. Let's say that Biden uses this logic. Let's say that Joe Biden claims that pardoning his son, Hunter Biden, for his crimes is saving the country and thereby violates no law. Wouldn't you find that kind of defense quite absurd? And this is where I get into it. Again, MAGA doesn't have an ideology. They don't have a belief system. They don't have a set of core values. They operate purely based on convenience. Thank you, C-Bar. Wow, oh my gosh, wait, did I get to my live goal? Ah! Y'all are awesome, oh my gosh. So, MAGA doesn't have an ideology. They don't have a core set of beliefs. They don't have any sort of like value system. They operate based on purely what is convenient. I love how you said your talking point, you're talking hypotheticals. No, but tell me I'm wrong. Convenience and hate. It's not hate at all. I'm just pointing, like, it's convenience and hate, 100%. I'm specifically just pointing out that would be the other way around. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. So you're saying that it would be okay for Biden to do this. It would be okay for Biden to post something like this. If you truly had a set of beliefs and morals, then you would condemn. You would, if you thought this was bad, you would condemn if Biden did it. But see, the thing is, you would condemn if Biden did it, but you don't condemn when Trump does it. Because again, it's based on complete convenience. Convenience, and it's all called motivated reasoning. Break that down. Motivated reasoning. It's where you are motivated to think a certain way based on convenience. So let's break it down further. We are about to have a constitutional crisis because, not just because of like this kind of language, but we're about to have a constitutional crisis because we have a president that is now claiming that anything he does is saving the country, and thereby, if it happens to go against a law, that it's justifiable in breaking it. That is dangerous. If you are enjoying the live stream, please make sure to send some likes. I work super hard to do these live streams and break this stuff down, and we're about to get into some nitty-gritty stuff. We're about to get into some nitty-gritty specifics, so please make sure to send some likes. Also, there are a lot of rage typers in the chat here. Let's show them that they are way much more in the minority. So if you're a quiet listener and you enjoy these, oh, I love your hair today, thank you. If you're a quiet listener and you enjoy these live streams, just comment the word yes. Just comment the word yes. The reason I say that is because there are so many loudmouth, drama, provocative rage typers that constantly try to take up space. You see how many people in here? Look at everyone in here that's just typing yes. You see that? There are so many people in this country that are not like the people who have a bullhorn. Sometimes live streams or social media, MAGA has such a huge megaphone. They have a huge bullhorn, but there's only so few of them. There's 160 or so people that are in here. Of those rage typers, I'm going to say that there's probably 4. Sometimes when you go into a live stream, 90% of the comments are taken up by only 9% of the people. Just know that going forward. Part of MAGA is to constantly be obnoxious, provocative, and drama-seeking. It goes to Steve Bannon's theory on trying to take over the government. He talks about how he wants to make it so crazy that you just don't engage. They're going after what they call muzzle velocity. What they're trying to do is just be so overwhelmingly loud and obnoxious to make everyone else feel exhausted. Don't give in. Don't give in. Don't give it attention either. So, breaking all of this down here, let's talk about specifics. Fears that the United States is in the midst of a constitutional crisis or something significantly worse intensified Saturday after President Donald Trump, or I should say acting President Donald Trump, real president's Elon Musk, wrote on social media that, quote, "He who saves his country does not violate any law," a variation of a quote attributed to Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, Trump's post on X, the platform owned by billionaire and shadow government leader Elon Musk, our real president, came as his administration continued its sweeping and destructive assault on the federal government workforce by running roughshod over the law in the process. And this is a piece from Common Dreams. So the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities highlighted a lot of these things: closing federal agencies and departments, and removing federal employees, ending the independence of independent agencies, placing employees on indefinite administrative leave, or pressing them to resign. So there's a lot of these federal agencies that are constantly being defunded and gutted, including the USAID program, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which takes $1 billion to run and gets back $20 billion in money. That is then, it's one of the best agencies. If you have, like, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a group that focuses on trying to put money back into the pockets of working class people that are constantly preyed upon and victims of predatory practices by bigger financial institutions. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a group that also opened up an investigation into Elon Musk. Conveniently, Elon Musk wants to shut them down. It's a conflict of interest. And when Elon Musk was questioned about this, he was like, "Oh yeah, if something's a conflict of interest, I'll obviously tackle that." Anyway, it's so crazy. Now, I want to point out that the Trump administration is trying to gut all of these programs. They're trying to constantly defund all of them. I want to point out that the USAID, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the Department of Education, all of these executive agencies were created by Congress, not the president. Not the president. When you look at the U.S. Code, all of these agencies were created through acts of Congress, not by the president. The job of the president is to run these executive agencies. The job of the executive branch is to use their discretion to run these agencies. The job of Congress is to legislate, create the laws, create the agencies. They're the ones that allocate and spend the money. The judicial branch is the group that oversees whether things are actually being applied within the realm of the Constitution. So for the executive agency to massively defund all of these agencies is basically like doing the legislature's job. So it's overstepping your government authority. Now, going back to all of this here, I want to point out that although Congress has no opposition, although Congress has occasionally given the president authority to propose reorganizing the government as a whole, or particular parts of it, the authorities relating to the changes on the administration is making all expired long ago. Although the president may ask Congress for a new reorganization authority, Congress must pass legislation to provide it, and the president would be bound by any timing and subject matter limitations Congress imposed on such plans. Since taking office less than a month ago, Trump and Elon Musk have moved aggressively to dismantle federal agencies, remove any officials who could shine light and obstruct their efforts. Trump, his handpicked cabinet officials, and Musk have also disregarded or openly attacked other co-equal branches of government, accusing judges who have moved to halt or limit the new administration's actions of being Democratic partisans. And in many ways, the Trump administration has actively defiled rulings from the federal courts, an alarming indication of what is to come. Do you all remember the memo? Do you all remember the big memo that was put out? I think it was January 27th by the Trump administration, freezing all of this federal spending. In the meantime, while I'm looking for it, I'm just going to put up that graphic there because it's just funny. Here it is. Oh my goodness. Do you all remember the federal spending freeze the Trump administration tried to do? They tried to literally stop all federal spending. This was a memo that was put out by the Trump administration back on January 27th, where they said, now that Trump has been elected, they have promises to the American people to, rid of the government of Marxist equity, transgenderism, and wokeness, make America healthy again, yada yada. Oh, thank you for 50K. I appreciate that, Fibro Queer. Hello. So, you all remember that? Well, oh god, now I have to find the next one. The one right after it. Hold on. I think I got, So, to implement these orders, each agency must complete a comprehensive analysis of all the federal financial assistance programs. And they're calling on all the heads of these agencies to temporarily pause all activities related to the distribution of federal financial assistance in order to, I guess, rid the government of woke, DEI, gender ideology, Green New Deal, social engineering, yada, 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 critical race theory, whatever. Crap. Now, what is the most notable is that what this did was it eliminated a lot of these programs that help run the government. So, and in addition to that, violating the separation of powers and checks and balances of our government. Because our government, our executive branch, does not have the authority to massively defund these institutions at this rate. That's seen as more of a legislative action, an action that must be taken by Congress. And so you had the judicial branch step in and say, yeah, you can't massively defund these kinds of things. That actually goes against the separation of powers. You have here that the court can declare presidential actions unconstitutional. It's a part of checks and balances. And here, you had a district court that actually overturned one of President Trump's, I guess our acting president, Trump, doing this federal spending freeze. You can see in here, it says, can declare presidential actions unconstitutional. It wasn't for the federal government to go in and massively underfund or massively cut these agencies at this extent. You can cut waste, fraud, and abuse, but by firing thousands of people, freezing thousands of all of the spending, that's like unconstitutional. So, yesterday I was talking about how you had all these agencies that are now not getting the funding that they need. So because of this memo, which put a freeze on all federal grants and loans, you had all these agencies that are not getting their funding. And even though this was blocked by a couple different judges, the Trump administration is just defying this order. They are not operating in good faith. They don't care about the checks and balances and the separation of powers and respecting the rule of law. They are not. So, thank you for explaining all this. Of course. So to put it bluntly, you have the Trump administration put out this memo freezing all the distribution of spending. Spending for Medicaid, spending for community health centers, for federal grants for those community health centers. You had this Trump administration put out this memo saying, we're going to rid the government of DEI, woke gender ideology, critical race theory, transgenderism, whatever. And what it did was they said, okay, agencies, we're going to pause the whole thing in order for us to assess this stuff. It's like, okay, you're going to stop all of government. You're going to stop all the payments for things like Head Start, Veterans Affairs, disability benefits, all of that. You're going to stop all of it. And the judicial branch was like, yeah, you can't freeze all federal spending, because that federal spending was already pre-approved by Congress to go through. This even hurt farmers, because there were agreements that farmers, that they entered into, hold on. It even hurt farmers. Let me get to it. because there were many farmers that went into an agreement with the federal government saying that if they did these updates, these infrastructure updates to their farms through an agreement, that they would be compensated and have cost sharing through the government, through the Inflation Reduction Act. Well, the Trump administration's memo was like, we're going to freeze all of this stuff. And what that did was it also froze all the payments to those people being compensated after paying out of pocket for these improvements. I like how you're saying this is misinformation. This is not misinformation. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Now, since then, the Trump administration did say, oh, we're revoking this. Revoking it. Well, after they were caught trying to do it. So the reason I lay all this out is the Trump administration literally is not respecting any sort of checks and balances whatsoever with the government. The judicial branch says you can't do this, and they are saying, so what? We're doing it anyway. Because many different programs still haven't received their funds. Let me just give you an example. The Revolving Door Project compiled a great list, or a list of all of these programs that are heavily affected. So, Trump administration non-adherence to court orders. FEMA still hasn't received some of their money for their processes. You have climate funding for the Inflation Reduction Act. So, because these judges basically said, hey, Trump administration, what you're doing is unconstitutional, there are farmers who are waiting on payments from the federal government after upgrading the infrastructure on their farm that are going to be better practices, more environmentally sustainable, all of that stuff, better for farmers, people, their communities. And now they're not receiving those payments. You still have people, like, again, do you all remember the video I just put out? The video I just put out was about a farmer who has this exact thing that happened. You also have community health centers who have still not gotten the federal grants and loans that they need in order to continue running. As of February 4th, 16 of Virginia's community health centers have been unable to access federal grant money used to pay staff. The freeze caused several closures and resulted in patient transfers to open locations. Health centers in California and Virginia received notifications, the termination of federal grants related to HIV preventative care. So you have all these rural health centers that are in rural parts of like more red states that are closing because they're not getting the money they need to continue to pay their staff because of this federal spending freeze. So many things are up in the air right now. Shouldn't states be funding their own centers? Well, states do fund their own health centers. But you also do need some federal money to do it. Why do you think that it's like 100% fully funded with this or this? Thousands of health centers will close with Medicaid cuts? That too. What's so interesting is as soon as something like this happens, you're like, oh, well, shouldn't it be funded by the state? You do realize that the federal government stopped paying that kind of stuff, your state taxes would go up, and you would claim that that's Marxism, that's communism, that's socialism. So what's your solution? You're going to be mad no matter what happens because you're motivated to think that way. So you have all these rural health centers that are closing down because they're not receiving the money that they need in order to keep going from the federal government. Half of Virginia's health centers have been cut off from federal grant money, forcing some to stop providing services and to close other ones, a majority of which serve rural areas with limited access to medical care. So, also, as of February 4th, the Head Start programs across the country are still waiting for federal funding, despite promises from the Trump administration that the funding freeze would not affect the program. Well, they're still waiting for the money from the federal government to continue operating to provide educational resources for low-income children. And I'm going to have to go here in just a few minutes, but I want to, again, point out one more thing. It's the checks and balances. With Trump saying that he is saving the country and thereby saving the country is not violating any law, so he can do whatever he wants. Well, again, his definition of saving is going to be different from you and me. So not only is he using opinionated language to justify breaking the law, just like a king, there are people who are brainlessly following him. But also, the courts actually overturned, said, hey, Trump, you can't do that. What you're doing is unconstitutional. It goes against the way our government is set up. He says, so what? And they ignore these things. And still, agencies, health centers, Medicaid, Head Start, community grant programs, people with disability benefits are still not getting the money that they were promised through the federal government. And they are suffering because of that. So, it is really, really tough. It's really, really tough for a lot of people out here right now.